Or
Yeah,
we're
we're good to
waiting on
start.
anybody else critical? Okay, awesome. All right, well, I will call the meeting to order at 6:03. This is the March 17th meeting of the Elementary School Building Committee for the Charleswood School Project. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. I will run through the agenda very quickly, and then we will get started on what is hopefully a pretty quick agenda. We will have our opportunity for public comment. Then we will approve the minutes from our last meeting. We will approve invoices. We'll get updates on building construction and street improvements, including under street improvements, the DPW resident engineer proposals. And we should be ready to talk about an award for that tonight. And then we'll do just a quick update on some of the neighbor outreach and discussions that have been ongoing around the work that's being done and some feedback we've gotten from the neighbors. And then we will adjourn. So I don't see anyone here for public comment, but so we'll move right along. But as usual, we will allow it to be brought up again if somebody comes later for public comment. The first thing we have is the minutes from our last meeting. So in your packet were the minutes for February 17th, 2026. Are there any comments or questions regarding those minutes? Okay. Hearing none, I would seek a motion to approve the minutes of February 17th.
So moved.
Is there a second? Mike, you're muted. I think you look like you were trying to second that.
No, I'm unmuted. I second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so we have a motion by Bill, a second by Mike. We are conducting this meeting remotely, obviously, so we need a roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Chris?
I missed the last meeting, so I'll abstain.
Okay, and I am a yes, so that one is approved 3-0 with one abstention. It's really unusual, Chris. You're the only Chris on this call for the first time, I think, since we've been doing this. So next, we're gonna pay some bills. The invoice package was in your meeting packet. We have 3 invoices. One from Vertex in the amount of $130,986.50. We have one from Perkins Eastman in the amount of $104,314.50, and one from Brate Builders Corporation in the amount of $1,967,441.40. The total of the 3 invoices in the package tonight is $2,202,742.40. Are there any questions or comments from the committee regarding the invoice package? Okay, hearing none, I would seek a motion to approve the invoice package included in the agenda materials.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Mike, second by Chris. Roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Chris?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is approved unanimously 4-0. Moving right along, next up on our agenda is building construction update. So Jeff, I will turn this over to you to give us an update on the construction and then roll right into street improvements. Jeff, you're muted.
Okay, take 2. I know you guys are used to seeing the dashboard in your meeting packet, so you have our monthly report. As usual, Chris and Chris kind of pulled this together, kind of pulled a snapshot out. So I'm going to just kind of go through a couple of slides and talk to you about where we're at overall. No changes to the schedule at this point, and we're tracking on cost and on budget. As of late, we poured concrete slabs in the last couple of weeks. So Mike and I were out there last Tuesday, walking as they poured the upper floor of Wing B at that point. So that second floor was poured at that point. Now we're up to the third floor. So the concrete slabs are progressing. Weather is starting to go our way. So we expect to pick up kind of pace there overall. And then C and D are kind of following as we kind of go wrapping our way around over to the gymnasium and kind of some of those interstitial spaces. So that's upcoming with end of last week, rather, not upcoming. Just what that looks like, those of you guys that haven't had the pleasure of being out on site, as Mike and I do, we pour it down, it gets screeded off to the side with those long screeds, and then they sand it down into place. So this was all on slab on deck on concrete placement. And we're now approaching the point where we're getting ready to do slab on grade. So you'll see at the lower level, we're compacting the gravel, and then the mesh will go in there, and then the concrete will start to follow through with the same rhythm as the upper floors, and then we can start to lay floors, or lay walls rather, and track. With the week has been a lot of water. Those of you that survived Monday know there was a bit of a monsoon. Brait in there, decided to work this past weekend. Yeah, they initially said they were not working, and then last minute audible on Friday to work on the weekend. So we ponied up Steve Devine and sent them out there. They had 11 guys on site really doing work to make sure the erosion control was refortified in preparation for Monday's storm. It's a bit of soup out there. If any of you guys have had the pleasure of walking there, I recommend probably waiting a week or two, and then you'll be able to get around the site a little bit better when you start to get some more of that draining. But Brait's doing a good job of really staying on top of the erosion control and being proactive there. Most notably, we're ready to drill wells now, and so the geothermal drilling has started, and so we have a second rig arriving on site. Has not mobilized yet to drill that second rig, but it is on site ready to go. We talked about starting that this week at today's OAC meeting. Water management will be an issue related to that. As you know, it's the drilling operation is a wet operation, and the site is overly saturated today. So they have a frac tank on site, and that's a watch item for us to make sure we're not screwing it up worse than Mother Nature is already doing with the amount of water that's on site. And so really trying to keep an eye on that and make sure we manage it. Exterior sheathing is going on site, as well as interior stud framing. So as you kind of walk the building, it's a really cool experience because you get to see the progression of the building as you walk from one wing to the next or one floor to the next. And so, like I said, in the next couple of weeks, probably a good time to get the committee back out there at the dry season. I'm sure people will be chatting about it around Marathon Monday, so maybe we can set up a tour for those of you that kind of want to do it. We're starting to see hangers come in, kind of wrapping up the below slab conduits in order to kind of pour those slabs. And then now where you see the finished floors above, we're hanging that ductwork, and the hangers are all in place. This is a snapshot that's in your packets. I won't kind of cover everything, but just some of the stuff we talked about are on the images above here. And then the upcoming month, we're really going to push forward with the geothermal, as well as additional concrete in the upper decks and the lower decks. And then really trying to maintain the temporary roadway around the building for deliveries. PCOs, you've approved number 3 and number 4, and so those are behind us at this point. We don't have any pending PCOs to present in front of you today. With Chris coming back next week, we'll have some back in front of you. We had a big push for change order 4 at your last meeting, which was the boulders and the credits that are associated with that. Again, just more updates that are in your overall project, but we'll remain on track. No updates related to amendments for the project foreseeable future. And that's kind of it for the building updates. And then I wanted to kind of talk about the resident engineer. So any questions on the building construction before we jump into the resident engineers? Okay. So it's your last.
Jeff, I just want to say for the committee members, I want to echo what Jeff said, which is I had a chance to go out, and Chris took me through the building last week. If you haven't been out there in a while, once it dries out a little bit more, because it was not fun getting back there, but it really is worth seeing. The progress that has happened is quite something, and for how long we've all been working on this project, being able to see it start to come to reality, and even the roughing out of the classrooms forming together, and really get a picture of what the building's going to look like. I highly recommend doing that. You can go ahead with the resident engineer.
Yeah, I wanted to zoom into the right.
Yeah.
readable legibility, right, the right word there, so you guys can actually read it. So a couple things with the resident engineer. So at your last meeting, we'd solicited 3 proposals. We only had 1 back. So we went back out and got 2 additional proposals to come back to refresh the committee on that. We initially submitted from Beta, Niche, and Howard Stein Hudson. Niche, Beta was not interested in responding to the RFI. Niche did not have available capacity. Howard Stein gave us a proposal. So we went back out and did CDM Smith and PAR. And CDM Smith did also not have staffing available. So we solicited 5 firms and we got 2 responses back. So we've leveled Howard Stein Hudson's in PAR. Both civil traffic engineering firms. I'll say Howard Stein leans a little more traffic, PAR leans a little more civil. Both of them are more than qualified for this scope of work. Both have the experience, both have the staff assigned and available, and both those staff members have roadway construction experience. So either one can be a perfectly fine selection for the committee here. We went and leveled all of them. All the scope is covered. I did want to close the loop on PAR about community engagement and complaints, but that's really just filing it back to us anyway, so I'm not worried about that tracking. I'm sure we can negotiate with them to get that included. They also use Raken in addition to us, so there was no problems associated with that. There was no mention about requisition, but again, I'm confident we can kind of negotiate that within the scope of work, as it's only going to be 3 months worth of effort. And so they basically level out in terms of all level of effort. And then they'd both be billed on a time and materials basis. They had senior resident engineers. They did meet the minimum qualifications. Ultimately, PAR gave a per week unit price where Howard Stein Hudson said, yes, we've got the 6 weeks covered. And so ultimately, they are an apples to apples comparison. There was an exception to the contract clause with Howard Stein Hudson about the word defend. Vertex Council has agreed to stricken that from the record and allow them to make sure it's insurable with their carriers. There was no request for a modification from PAR. Ultimately, what that meant is last time you saw Howard Stein Hudson's proposal, they had a $98.5 million, $98,500 proposal with some kind of additional comeback work to check final progress, round numbers of $102,000 proposal. When we went back, we talked about relieving some of the rigidity of the expert engineer, so you didn't have to have a PE stamp, meaning you didn't have to be a professional engineer. And so PAR was able to submit a proposal based on not having a dedicated full-time engineer. Their time is valuable and they didn't want to tie up that engineer. So they offered us a proposal with an hourly or weekly rate. I went back at Howard Stein Hudson to get an apples to apples. They offered a credit of $7,000 off their original appropriation. What that means is that the daily rate for PAR is $1,350 per day. Howard Stein Hudson originally had 2 rates. They had a junior engineer at this $1,440, and then they had a regular engineer at $1,620. Now, when I did the math and took the $7,000 off, it doesn't really land on either one. Now, as part of the go back, we also said we wanted some supplemental engineering resources so that if there are questions or we do want feedback, we want a kitty of hours that we can have assigned to it on top of the resident engineer that we're reviewing the project. Ultimately, when I did the math of what the credit would be back and I used the lower rate, there was about $3,800 left in the overall number. And so I think that's the kitty that's associated with Howard Stein Hudson. And I filled in the numbers for PAR as they did not give a specific kitty. They say we'll bill it at the rate, but I took an average of 2 hours times the 13 weeks. We're projecting 12 weeks, but then we had a week of punch list essentially, which kind of lines up with the way that Howard Stein Hudson did it. So from an apples to apples standpoint, I think that kind of levels out the 2 firms. And ultimately, I have probably a little bit higher on the project engineer support on PAR. But when you add all that up, PAR subtotals at $92,300 and Howard Stein Hudson is $95,300. The key factors to note is that it's time and materials, and so the daily rate is lower from PAR, and I probably estimated a little bit higher from that kitty of hours versus Howard Stein Hudson's kitty of hours. Net, there's currently about a $3,000 difference, but ultimately I think that'll probably get a little wider at the end of the day if we chose to go forward with PAR. We're perfectly fine going with either firm. Either firm is more than adequate, has the credentials, can do the work. Like I said, Howard Stein Hudson leans a little more traffic, Power leans a little more civil. Both of them do both services though, so I don't think you can really go wrong with either firm.
Do we have any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have one, John. Hi, Jeff. How are you? It's good to see you again. It's been a while. If you could go up, actually, no, you're right there. You're fine. Does it matter that PAR didn't allocate for a project punch list, or is that included in their bottom line number?
So we added a 13th week to equalize that. So if I did this 87,780 is 13 weeks compared to the 12 weeks over there. So they had broke it out separately. I could itemize this as 12 weeks if we wanted to do that and have an apples to apples. So that would have them at a different rate overall, because the hourly the weekly rate there is, just so I have that, 35 times 5. Right, is 6750, and then ultimately this would be minus that, for an equal if you're doing apples to apples.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
So, I didn't break that out because it would kind of double it, but you can see that the hourly rates, do differ. It's a daily rate of $90 a day times a week times 12 weeks. That's why the gap starts to grow to that $3,000+ between the two firms.
Thanks.
Other questions?
I don't have a strong recommendation one way or the other. I'm perfectly happy going with either firm that you guys would recommend. Like I said, I think the savings will grow with PAR just because their hourly and daily rate is a little less.
Hey, John, if I may,
Yeah, Mike.
given what we've seen in the presentation, I can't see why we wouldn't go with the low bidder. Being otherwise equal, we don't have a lot of money to spend, and that would be my recommendation at any rate. I don't know what the other guys think.
I mean, candidly, I would agree with that. That it doesn't seem like there's much daylight between them from a services perspective. So, in this case, it seems like low bidder is the way to go.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. So then I would need a motion to award and keep me honest here, Jeff, the resident engineering contract for the Hayden Row improvement work to PAR Engineering. Is that
You're going to run that through us, right? I think that's why we've established this and set this up.
Oh, right. So what are we doing? Authorizing Vertex to?
Yeah. So you'd be
Engage.
authorizing Engage PAR as the resident
PAR
engineer for the Hayden
as the
Row
resident,
project
okay.
with a not to exceed value of $101,563 to be billed on time and materials.
Do we have a motion for what Jeff just said?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike, a second by Chris. Roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Chris?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is unanimous.
We have
And
5 voting members today. Sorry.
4.
Whoa. Okay, thanks. I forgot I'm responsible for minutes too.
Sorry, you can just put in an AI, it'll do it for you. Okay, so I think that's it for the construction updates and roadway updates. Unless there are any other questions on those, we can talk. What is a little bit about roadway? We can talk about some of the neighbor conversations we've been having.
Just so I have, before I leave that, so I record the other notes because I don't think I actually recorded this meeting. The motion for the minutes was 3-0 and Chris abstained, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then the invoices were 4-0.
Just the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the minutes, the motion was Bill, the second was Mike. And then everything else I think you got right.
Yeah, that's correct.
The minutes, not the invoices. You had the invoices correct.
Rusty here.
Yeah.
Thanks for bearing with my technical challenges.
Not a problem.
Screen. Butters and
Okay.
engagement of the butters and a couple of hiccups that occurred recently. Do you want me to jump into
Yeah.
that or?
Yeah, so we can jump into that. The context for this is it felt like a good time to just bring back to the committee, make you aware of the conversations that we have been having with neighbors and abutters as we have been going through this process. Mike has been really instrumental in a lot of the, well, as well as Vertex has been instrumental in a lot of the responses, being able to be on site a lot. And the conversation has picked up primarily, I think, driven by people may have seen as you drive by the site. Verizon has, over the past couple weeks, has come out to do the moving of the utility poles. That has been largely completed their part in moving the utility poles. So mostly then it's about Eversource getting their lines onto the new poles. But we have had a couple of challenges with Verizon specifically. They are, unfortunately, we're not able to integrate that work into the project in terms of our control and scheduling. So we're kind of at their mercy as to when they're going to come out and do the work. And as was the case with this, we didn't get much notice. And so we did hear from some residents about complaining about not getting notice before the pole work was being done. Obviously, a lot of these poles are being moved quite close to driveways and in other disruptive ways. And so the project team in particular, and helped by Mike, were incredibly helpful at being responsive, going out and talking to the Verizon crews directly, which was the only way that we were able to actually get a full schedule from them to know what was going to be going on. And then we communicated with the neighbors as quickly as possible. There was one what I'd call major incident. There was a mix-up with the dig-safe markings that after some snow occurred, and in placing one of the poles, they damaged a sewer line. And so a resident was without use of that for a portion of the day. Obviously, it's not what we want to have happen. I will say Verizon was very responsive. They got a crew out, began fixing it immediately, and had the abutter system on by dinner time. Again, thanks to the project team, I'll particularly call out Steve Devine, who is our on-site person, who has been checking in with a lot of the neighbors, and Mike, who was able to go out there as well. We're still following up with Verizon. The resident has rightly requested documentation from Verizon of what happened, and thus far we have not gotten that, but we will continue to push for it so that he has that for any future insurance needs should they arise. Jeff, Jeff or Mike, I guess, do you want to comment on any of what I just said there about the recent history?
Yeah, you can go, Mike, if you got anything to add.
DigSafe did mark where the line was. However, I've talked to several experts since then. The line doesn't have running water in it, of course, 100% of the time, and it's in a plastic pipe. So DigSafe, who can find gas lines really easy, can find electric lines easy, can find water lines easy, has most difficult finding sewer line. And I think perhaps it was marked wrong, perhaps it was because of the snow, but they got the pole within 1 or 2 feet of where it was supposed to be at the end of the day. And the Verizon guys never left after the incident. They hired an outfit from Ashland, which was, certified, approved by the town. The town inspected it. It was all put back together, like I say, by by supper time. Unfortunately, it happened, but I think they did the right thing in terms of trying to fix it. But that's about all there is with that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And we're still working out with Verizon. They've done all but two of the polls. That there's still a debate about the ones at the Marathon driveway and who owns what between Verizon and EverSource that we're just still trying to sort through. I believe they're all owned by Verizon, but Verizon's saying they're owned by EverSource, so we're still trying to figure that out. So more to come on that, but all the other poles have all been installed and that's all resolved. But to John's point, some of the other people, those neighbors wanted more notice. So, we're looking to make sure we get a information exchange, right? So I think, one of the things we want to look at is, roadway project and getting a timeline there. And I think it's probably effective if we start to do kind of a weekly email chain, right? Essentially, like, here's what's coming up, here's what to expect in your front yard. And I think that'll go a long way to helping preemptively address anxiety. It's not going to resolve the anger and annoyance, but it will be helpful into the process, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And what we've heard from the bulk of the neighbors is just that. They want to make sure that they have notice and communication as much as possible. We obviously explained, I don't know how much it was satisfactory, but the uniqueness of this Verizon portion of it, and drew a contrast to what they can expect when we actually start the roadway work that's under the control of this committee and the project team. So obviously we want to make sure we meet that bar for them, because as Jeff said, it's an annoyance, and it is, also we've heard some things about, being able to plan. They're having work done on their house, so making sure that they know what to tell the trucks about how to get in and out of the driveway. So those basic things that we would just want to make sure people are still able to work with.
Yeah.
The only other, sorry, are there any questions about that related to Hayden Row before I talk about some another abutters in another direction?
There was some other stuff on Hayden Row butters too. Do you want to talk about the discoloration of the water?
Oh yeah, we have had in a couple of instances we have received complaints of water discoloration. I don't know, Jeff, you can help me out here, that we've really landed on exactly what the source of it is, but we believe it's more likely to do with events on the town water system than it is to do with anything that's going on site.
I think that we filled the line. So there was a couple questions whether the daily use was an issue, and I don't think that's the issue. It was the fact that when the line was first
Open.
when you first open a valve, it becomes a tidal wave, right? So you're pushing the water from the street, and all the sediment that sits at the bottom of that water line all gets churned up. So I think it was the initial charge of the line, is what caused some of the sediment to be stirred up, and some of the direct abutters reported seeing some brown water in their laundry and sinks and things like that. And DPW has been involved. They're addressing it. They've made a statement related to that they think it's related to the initial turn on the water, but it should not be an ongoing issue. But I do want all the committee members to understand in case you hear about that around town.
John, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the issues regarding the sewer line was that when they mobilized to fix it, half of Hayden Row Street was cut off. In other words, Verizon hired a police detail, but the traffic could only go one direction at a time. So neighbors complained, rightly so, I think, about not being able to get out of their driveway. And it was a 4 or 5 hour time when this thing was, from the time it happened till the time it was fully repaired. And it was on a Monday afternoon, as I recall. But to my thinking, it brought to mind, more importantly, how we communicate with the neighbors, whether it's by email or whatever, of what to expect, what's going to come. Because I understand the civil guys are going to be out there or want to be out there, do some stuff on April vacation. I know it's before the summertime thing, but they want to do. But we ought to be letting the neighbors know as much as we know what's going to happen to avoid the confusion. We're bound to have complaints. There's nothing we can do about that. But I think we should try our best to get ahead of it so that, no one can say we didn't do our best.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, there are things going to be out of our control. We'll all collectively be judged on, as John alluded to. We can control the Hayden Row contractor. The poles are in, but then over time, all the various entities will come in and move the wiring down, right? So you got to swing it from the old pole to the new pole, right? They're just going to show up at a whim because they got canceled on another job and they were told to go over to this location, right? We'll take whatever advance notice we have, but that will be a catch as catch can battle that we'll just have to deal with, essentially.
Okay. And then the other thing that I just wanted to make the committee aware of in terms of abutter outreach is we also heard from a new owner from the Newbury Glen development, which is off of Blueberry, that was raising a concern about the amount of trees that were left on that lot following the clearing. As people know, when we began this process and even when we had finalized all of the design, the clearing on those lots that abut the school had not even begun. So I talked with the town to get sort of a past practice idea on what would normally be done in that situation. There is some screening going in along the Newbury Glen. So there's the part that is covered with the parking lot has full screening for headlights and such. And then as you go further up after the parking lot ends, we are planting additional trees. Those lots will absolutely, given the amount that has been cleared on the residential lots, will absolutely be able to see the school. But again, those lots had not even started being built until our plans were filed, approved, et cetera, and we cleared right along the stated lines that we had according to the plans. So that's what's been communicated to any neighbors that have reached out from the Newbury Glen area. Obviously, if there are reasonable things we can do, we'll continue to look into it and talk to the committee about it. But at this time, given the timing, the fact that their lots were brand new unbuilt lots at this point, we're not recommending to move forward with anything additional in terms of redesigning the landscaping around that area. Any questions on that? Okay. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. So I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Bill, second by Mike. Roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Chris?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so we are adjourned at 6:36 p.m. Thank you to everyone, and thank you especially to HCAM for broadcasting this, and have a good evening.